Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the show She Speaks at 10. Today we have Ms. Vinita Bakshi, founder of Aambra Foundation, with us, and she will be giving a brief about this platform, She Speaks at 10, our show, and why it is important for women to keep their voices raised. Ma'am, could you please tell us a bit about this platform?
Uh, Namaste, India. Hello, everyone, and good morning to She Speaks at 10. Every woman has a story. The basic idea behind this thought process is that, to build a strong and healthy network across the country from east to west and south to north, creating a network for women, by the women, for the women, and foster growth in the process of economic development of the country, as well as a platform where women can share their struggles, challenges, their problems, if they how would they like to contribute in building a stronger and healthier ecosystem, economic prosperity for the country, and also lift other women who face challenges. So it's a platform for the women who are aspiring. It is a platform for the women who inspire other women to take up those leadership roles for which everybody must keep their fight on, struggle on, the process on, and must never give up. So that is why in all the categories for each and every day we have categorized it, but it does not mean that if the somebody does not feel that we are falling under this category or that category, then we cannot participate in this program. So this platform is for each and every one of you, whatever role you may aspire for, or whatever your endeavor is, or your project is, or your profession is, or your field is. So we have divided it into different days. So for example, we have days on which we invite academics. We have days on which we invite entrepreneurs. We have days on which we invite professionals. We have days on which we invite, women who are doing good work in social sector. Similarly, professionals, and each and every one of you. So even spirituality. So Mondays are the days on which we invite women who believe in empowering themselves through spiritual growth. On Tuesday, we are inviting entrepreneurs. On Wednesday, we are inviting academics. On Thursdays, we are inviting journalists and authors and writers. On Fridays, we are inviting mental health experts. On Saturdays, we are inviting sportswomen. And on Sunday, we are still searching for extremely inspirational stories, which sometimes even go unnoticed. For example, the female who has broken a glass ceiling in some way. For example, female drivers. Still it is not the norm. It is not very common in India to find female drivers, auto drivers, or truck drivers, or similarly there are certain professions you will find very very few women. Even the chefs, most of the chefs would be males, although traditionally the kitchen has been the stronghold of women. Nothing against males, we want males also to be part of this process and propose names for their female counterparts, or for the women whom they feel they should be featured on the show. So this is a journey which we are going to do together. So this is a journey which is where we complement, the roles are complementary. And that is why you would see that in the She Speaks group, we have as many males and as many females. And please feel free to join She Speaks Facebook group, and also follow us on the She Speaks page. And today also we have a very illustrious guest with us, Professor BulBul Dhar-James. And in the previous week, we've had some extremely inspiring women who've joined this platform and shared their story at 10 a.m. in the morning, India time. And over to Apolline, and Professor BulBul Dhar-James would be joining us shortly.
Yes, Professor BulBul Dhar-James will be joining us soon. However, I would like to have another question for you. So, what are some of the major challenges that you think women face when they want to speak out today?
So, Apolline, a very good question. I feel women, our, in India or in any part of the world, especially India, I would say that, we have a very great tradition of uh, an institution which is one of the greatest institutions in the world, marriage and family. So sometimes it is, again, it is a question of a personal choice. So, family as an institution is very important to each one of us, but at the same time, if things are not working out, if things are not working out within the family members, or supposing, I would talk about not the family, I would talk about the marriage as a relationship, especially between two individuals. So, one has to know how much to put up, and one has to know when to not put up. So because family is so important to us, because this institution is so important to us, sometimes we do not understand that where I need to change things even within the family, and whether uh, what is the time when I have to actually take a decision to, this is working out for me or not working out to me. And then what about a large number of women and men who have decided to stay outside this institution, for example, who are single, who are widowed, or who are divorced, or who have not married by choice. So sometimes when we put this extra emphasis on the entity, the personal choices, the personal freedom, the personal happiness also should not be compromised or sacrificed. So we have to think about the family, and also at the same time we have to think about our individual selves. But in India, because this right from the day one, especially the girl child, is taught to honor family, which is good, honor your family, but also at the same time, honor yourself also, honor your self esteem, honor your self respect, and also honor your self reliance. So do not depend upon others for your economic empowerment or social empowerment or empowerment of whatever kind it might be. So it is very good to keep the institution cohesive. It is very good to keep the family unity, but at the same time, do not sacrifice yourself as a sacrificial goat, because in an institution, in a family, you're as important as any other member of the family. You're not less important than the male members of the family. You're equally important. If their happiness is important, so is your happiness important. And similarly, the women who have stayed independent, or who have not married by choice, or who have been single for some reason, whether it's divorced or a partner having left them, or they have left a partner, or something tragic happened in their life. At the same time, system must learn to respect and not tag or typecast the women who have made a choice to stay out of the institution. So when we put this extra emphasis on marriage, or extra emphasis on this family thing, so people who have remained outside of this institution, they inadvertently get, they feel singled out, or they feel not part of the process or part of the system. So what about the people who've stayed outside? They also deserve equal amount of respect, don't they? So this is one reason many times women, when they are oppressed or suppressed or face violence or victimization within the family, do not speak up.
That's true. I do agree. And I have seen this great phrase, she speaks, every woman has a story. So, could you please also tell us a bit more about your thought behind this phrase, and how do you think that these stories will have an impact on youth generations or the generations that are to come?
Yeah. So, Apolena, every woman, is born in a very unique socio-economic group in the society. So, India has a very rich, diverse culture. So, so in some sense, the challenges of the women all over the world, all over India, all parts of India remain the same, right? So, definitely in all parts of the world, women are fighting patriarchy. That way, we are very lucky. Indian society is much less patriarchal than our Western counterparts. The amount of patriarchy West is facing is like enormous. The domestic violence, enormity of domestic violence, not to say. But we have our own set of challenges. We have our own set of problems which are very, very unique to us. And for example, honor killing is there. For example, there are certain many other problems are there which are very unique to us. And in certain parts of the country, they are less prominent. Female infanticide is there. So many other problems are there, and so many other good things are also there. So as I always say, pain and pleasure go hand in hand. So, good things, bad things, every society, every culture is a combination of a certain things. There would be certain strength points and there would be certain weak points. So we must retain and keep our strengths, but at the same time, whatever weaknesses we are facing or whatever adversities that are coming in the way of the progress of the women in our society, they must be eliminated, must be talked about, and we should not hush them. So that is why, this tagline, every woman has a story, because women are born in diverse socio-economic conditions, and their challenges have been different, their turning points in life have been different, their struggles have been different, their achievements are different. So somebody who's born in a certain socio-economic condition cannot be compared with somebody who's born in another socio-economic condition. Obviously their trajectory has been very different. So but what are the points, where what were the points that made them realize their complete potential? What were those moments in which they could feel that, yes, I can do it and I can achieve it and I must do it and I must share my story with others, so that it can act as a learning as well as a point where women will also feel that, yes, this is the inspiration I take from this story, or this is the lesson I take from story. This is what my learning has been as a youth from. So this is kind of a mentoring platform for the youth, and also sharing our struggles, challenges, inspirations and aspirations. And we've been joined by Dr. BulBul Dhar-James. And everybody must have, who's been in Delhi in the field of, who's been working in the field of gender studies or women empowerment, has heard her name or has been touched by her. So, Apolena, why don't you quickly introduce Professor BulBul Dhar-James, and then a very warm welcome, Dr. BulBul Dhar-James. Extremely privileged to have you.
Apologies for the delay. We have this work going on in the condominium, so I negotiated with them to stop at 10. So, yeah.
Most welcome. No worries at all. And over to Apolena and over to Professor BulBul Dhar-James. Thank you for joining us, everybody.
Not at all. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I'm going to join you from Facebook Live, Dr. BulBul Dhar-James, and I'm going to be commenting and watching from there and passing my own remarks and my questions. And over to you and Apolena. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone, again. Today we will be in conversation with Dr. BulBul Dhar-James, who is a professor of the Political Science Department in Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. She was the former director of Sarojini Naidu Center for Women's Studies and coordinator of MA Political Science Program and MA Human Rights Program in Jamia Millia Islamia. She was also the former consultant for the National Council of Applied Economics, and she did her postdoctoral on global political economy and governance. She has today over 34 years of experience as a lecturer in many prestigious universities all around New Delhi. Her research and publications and presentations are mostly centered around topics like human rights, political economy of globalization, and governance, African studies, gender, and empowerment. Additionally, she also has associations with over 30 Delhi based NGOs, and she actively contributes to empowerment of women. Ma'am, I would like to now invite you to Let us share your story through our show She Speaks at 10.
Thank you, Apollina. I'm indeed privileged to be part of this absolutely amazing initiative of Aambra Foundation, of Vanita. I mean, I've been on the She Speaks more than a few years back, and I could see the passion and the commitment that she has in in looking at the various manifestations, and there are myriad dimensions to it of gender in various ways. And her final initiative, which I've been somewhat involved with on mental health, which to me is really a very, very significant area of concern, that with the elderly and with the adolescents and with the pandemic, this is something that we are facing. And I think the initiatives are absolutely amazing. So I'm truly privileged to be part of, this forum. And when Vinita asked me, I didn't think that, I had anything to say about myself in that sense of the term, but it did to take me down memory lane. And nostalgia, got into that nostalgia mode. And nostalgia, as somebody has said, is like a grammar lesson. One finds the present tense, but the past perfect. In some senses, we look back, if we could only go back in time. And I'm sure there have been a lot of stories that have been told, and each of us have stories. We have choices that we have made through, our life, the battles we've fought, and the successes and the failures. In fact, the redefining of what is success and a failure also, because through time, our definition of success also changes with time and experience. And to me, that has been a real learning, a learning towards new commitments, because, Vanita introduced me as somebody who's, deals with gender. To me, it's not just an academic activity, it is a commitment. And that's come with experience, that's come with what in retrospect I would call opportunity, but at that point seemed like a crisis. And I think we need to redefine what we see as a crisis, because there's a larger picture that we don't see at the time that we are facing any kind of a crisis. But those are really opportunities, and to me also those have been opportunities personally and professionally for growth in myriad ways. Indeed, I feel that women, especially women, flower with every crisis. With every crisis we are conquering ourselves. And basically, the most ferocious of the toughest of the warriors, as they say, are those who conquer themselves. And women are certainly the tough ones. So, thinking about my life's journey so far, I didn't know what the format was. I just, kind of looked at, asked Vinita now. And so I thought it would be like a question and answer session. But to kind of go back into a narrative of one's own. So I think my life's journey, I would like to say, is defined by the fact that I'm a child born in an armed forces family, a father in the EME, electrical mechanical engineers, and a mother who was very culturally inclined. In fact, she's a literature person, so very, very, very culturally inclined, musically inclined as well. So, as children, wherever we've been, we've learned. I have a brother and a sister, an elder brother and a sister. And my brother's sandwiched between my sister and me, so I'm the youngest. So in some senses, my name is defined by the fact that I'm the youngest. As I keep telling my parents that I'm the third neglected child, and you never gave me a proper name, because my brother and sister had pet names, Bindu and Baba, and I was BulBul, and we were the three Bs. They have proper names, but mine remained BulBul. So till now, I have friends and colleagues who, kind of are male colleagues who are embarrassed to call me by my name, and I have to say, look, that's my name. But jokes aside, that's been part of armed forces. Being just, I think I really savor the experience of the so diverse kind of diverse and secular kind of culture of our country, celebrating all kinds of festival I haven't seen, I've never felt any sense of, this is not my festival, because it was always celebrated across religions. So despite, and to me also, and I want to kind of, emphasize here that religions are tied to a lot of festivals that we have here. But as a Hindu, and Hinduism itself, I think is a way of life more than a religion for a lot of us, certainly for me. And I think it's something personal, which to me becomes, when we kind of deconstruct the kind of problems having in today's time, is perhaps the fact that it's become so public too. So just the celebration of so many festivals, adopting regional dresses, and that's something, from the Settumunda to the Mekla Chador, to the Peran, which, through winter I would wear, or Mekla Chador and Settumunda, because while I was teaching in Lady Shri Ram College, just having finished my MA and, looked very young, and Dr. Meenakshi Gopinath was the principal then, and she quietly told me it'll be better if you wear saris and come to teach, so that there's some distinction. And there was no way I could be wearing a sari every day while I was running for my MPhil classes in JNU and coming from there. So that's when I started wearing mekla chadar and setamundu, which looked like a sari. And kind of, and that's something which has always been convenient and never regarded as another languages and another dress. I think exposure to different languages also as an armed forces. This is like an advertisement for the army, and languages and food, and which I thoroughly enjoy from across. It's never, I would miss. There isn't any typical that one would, being a Kashmiri, I have, but I don't really make that much of Kashmiri food, and I crave for all kinds of other food as well. So somewhere along the line, that's been the defining factor, and the movement from, as a baby in Sikandrabad, so picking up Tamil from the help that was the Tamil help that we had, picking up Gujarati in Baroda, where I did my, Montessori kind of schooling, and practically failed in Hindi when I came in the admission test, when we came to Delhi, and I was giving a test for to be taught all the alphabets and everything, when I was giving a test in the school in Delhi Public School, which I later joined. Moving on to places where my father got posted, so Dehradun, which was the only experience of an all girls kind of an institution till I came to college, because we came back to Delhi. So Delhi is, I mean, I regard Delhi myself as a Delhiite in various ways. Primarily joined back Delhi Public School then. And I think I've always, kind of looked at Delhi as a huge cultural center, the Bharatiya Kala Kendra, the Mandi House complex, the plays, NSD, Kathak Kendra, all of that was part of my growing up. So through college, which was LSR, and LSR was also another defining, dimension of one's existence, with, the first time that I've seen so many girls together in colored, not in uniform, and in colored clothes. And it was truly like, for me, a defining moment, and with an excellent address by one of our faculty who's no more, Dr. Reena Sevak. And it was absolutely awe-inspiring. I remember joining and being absolutely taken in by, the scenario of, delving into political science. And I didn't join LSR, or was not my first choice, or political science wasn't my first choice. I wanted to do law, but the travel to Delhi University was something I couldn't take. After a few times that I went, and I decided, okay, we stayed in South Delhi, in South Extension. So LSR was close by. So it was almost like a convenient option. And that's been really defining aspect, with really, really good teachers that we had then as well. And that's when, it was a learning in various ways, in terms of the many stages and events that happened, and the exposure to so many things. I was also simultaneously teaching for a bit in the blind school, next to Oberoi Intercom, which used to be Oberoi Intercom Continental. And thereafter, going for my Kathak classes. So we had to combine a lot of multitasking that one learned that you had to, kind of manage. And JNU really opened up those academic kind of dimensions in various ways, which, I can't, which to me, till date, is something that, I connect with in various ways. And that was, uh, that was the defining factor in terms of wanting to pursue academics in a sense. And so when I got the Commonwealth Fellowship to do my PhD, I was actually teaching in LSR at that point in time, LSR, and I've taught in Janki Devi. And, comfortably with a UGC NET scholarship I already had. And I toyed with the idea of actually leaving teaching in the college because, I thought I was barely, you barely were getting a little more than the scholarship itself as a salary. So that was something that, one thought about. But once, that's when I started doing my MPhil on African studies. So my focus on African studies was my initial, could call it my specialization per se. And that's when I got the Commonwealth Fellowship. Like many of others who had, I wasn't intending to, take up something. Everybody wanted to do something in India so that they could come back to do their fieldwork. But to me, this was an opportunity that I wanted to use and optimize on and continue with my African studies so that even if I wasn't coming back to India for my fieldwork or, fieldwork come vacation, I would be learning so much more. So, and Tanzania was a real exposure. I worked in Tanzania. I worked in politics of economic liberalization in urban Tanzania. And that was a real experience for me as well. And all the while, when you're in a different country and you're studying somewhere else, you feel like little ambassadors of your country. And this was like, in Tanzania was the first time I really felt, that I needed to defend the kind of racial attitudes that the Indians in Africa had. And that's something which has, remained with me, because the reason I took up African studies was the kind of a Eurocentric and Americocentric kind of perception of Africa. And that is what I found, that it was even worse, as an Indian. So that really, defined my, walk into the human rights scenario and how there's a double speak in a lot of things that we do. And, being in London and in SOAS, School of Oriental and African Studies for my PhD, I did not have, and that was also interesting, despite this, this Eurocentric, Americocentric was so focused that even in SOAS in London, for African studies, apart from teaching languages, you did not have any Black African on the board. Now there are some, but at that point they weren't. And it was only for languages that we had Black Africans. So it extended to that. And I realized that Indian academia is so well defined and so well developed. And African really needed to be. So that was an interesting dimension. And I completely savored my experience in London as well. Sky TV had just started. I wasn't interested in watching the movies. I took in all possible, spent a lot of my scholarship money in musicals and opera and stuff that I saw. But having completed, and in the middle of my PhD, I got married to somebody who was also doing a Commonwealth scholar who was also there. And we got back, got back here, even though there were opportunities for having continued to be there, because I think somewhere behind me, and even when I look back now, that I had this conception that I don't want to die. I want to die in my own land. So call it patriotic, call it a kind of a, background of the armed forces or whatever. That's something that we grow with, because it's a trade-off either way, wherever you are. We might have to deal with corruption here and other kind of nepotism and other things, but it's something that we should do something about instead of, complaining about it. So getting back, my daughter was born in London, and then my second child, my son, was born here. Both of whom daughter is doing her master's now, and my son, both of them have very unconventional kind of choices that they've made. My son finished physics and from Delhi University, and took on music, and he's presently in Los Angeles actually pursuing his sound engineering and combining that with composition. And so she was born there. I got back here, and life happens when you are making other plans. So it's really not, as John Lennon has said, so it's really not something that you can anticipate and plan for. So getting back here, I joined JNU for a bit as visiting faculty, and taught in SIS in JNU, and then joined as a consultant, thanks to a very dear friend who kind of pushed me to join that, and the National Council for Applied Economic Research as a consultant, and worked in politics of liberalization in India, which to me was an opening, because you'd been so in as a doctoral work, you get so focused on one particular area that other things get lost. So I really wanted to get back beyond Africa into India as well, and a lot had happened in India while I was gone, with liberalization having changed a whole, the entire complexion of how we looked at the government, the policy, and certainly political economy. To me, that was very, very relevant. So, and then I joined Jamia in late 1998. And that was a choice that I could have joined other universities, and the department wasn't the best of the departments, but I really thought I could contribute in kind of making a change there. And I think it's happened, and it's really it's reached places in a lot of ways. We have 3 MA programs, all of whom papers in all of which I teach, which is political science, public administration, and human rights. And that's when I didn't get a chance to teach African studies. There was another colleague who'd also done African studies from JNU who was already teaching. So which was a good opportunity for me to delve into other areas. And over a period of time, academically, I haven't got into gender studies in that sense of the term till a couple of years into my teaching in Jamia, and teaching very, very interdisciplinary courses, which are designed as well on political sociology, on global political economy. In fact, the global political economy course, I really started after I got back. After sometime in 2004, I got the Fulbright Fellowship, and where I was pursuing global political economy. And that also, that whole American academia and scenario was an eye-opener in a lot of ways, because it showed the kind of, we had 18 of us from 18 different countries and almost 18 different languages, 18 different disciplines that we were speaking, we were, discussing. So the cross-disciplinary thing really came in a big way. And today I look at that, whether it's political economy of gender, or it's that larger complexion of all of, local governments or public administration, all these in a very, very interdisciplinary way. And that is, that I think to me is very important. And from there grew my kind of interest in, looking at women's studies first. And at a personal level, in personal life, crises are always defining movements. And as I said, opportunities as well. And so I think the start of really understanding it came with UGC's capacity building program for women managers in higher education, which we had fantastic mentors who took us through the fact that, and that's a short workshop that I did, which was a preliminary workshop, followed by a training of trainers, followed by management skills enhancement kind of workshop. So we are trainers for capacity building in various ways. But that workshop really was a defining factor in recognizing the kind of patriarchy that we are all subjected to and take for granted. And I also wanted to look at feminism and defend feminism, to say it is not versus or against the men, which is how it's normally perceived. And even your colleagues in the department would say, what capacity building are you talking about? Women are already there in so many positions. So you have to tell them, are they really there in the upper echelons? by virtue of, their skills and their professional capability. And no, they're not vice chancellors unless they're women's universities. And as it happens, we have a lady vice chancellor now in Jamia, which, one couldn't really, think of, unheard of. So so with personal crisis in my life, and that was really an opportunity which could have got me down, but I think uh, you know it's something that we have to decide that it's our road that we walk in life, and ours alone. Others may walk with us, but as Rumi said, no one can walk it for you. So we really have to make our own choices. And I've there've been choices that one has made, you can regret it, you can kind of uh, build on the fact that there are issues that we can draw on. But what really defines us is how we come across. And I feel that women truly show their resilience when crisis comes in various ways. And staying and we can't always choose the kind of music that life plays. We can choose the music that life plays for us, but how we dance to it, how we dance to that tune is entirely up to us. So if we are reacting in a crisis that one is faced with, we should not let that be the defining factor. So to me, that has been, undoubtedly has been a lot of challenges through the time that one has been there, including, the building of a kind of a thinking and trying to multiply that through one's teaching. So the realization that even though I was teaching, say, political economy or political sociology and human rights, certain courses in human rights, uh, like science and technology and human rights and the impact, one could see if you had an interdisciplinary kind of an inclination, which in today's day is so important, because we really need to make those connections. We could actually see the connections between the diverse connections between the different disciplines that I was teaching. Somewhere along the line, that also led to my inclination, apart from the capacity building initiative, which afterwards we were doing all over. These were all over India. And those initiatives we had in the workshops, we had experience sharing by very, very supposedly successful women, who were deans and principals and institution builders in the forces. And it's very interesting that how in closed doors, when we had a narrative, experience sharing happening, we realized the kind of crisis, the kind of situations that they had overcome. And, then a connect develops, and we basically, all of us are fighting some battle or the other, or have fought, and we constantly do. And that defines how we, overcoming that really defines a lot of, challenges that we've met. But that's what challenges the limits, our own limits as well. And to me, that these experiences were great, because you couldn't imagine that these so successful and are so poised and such role models that we had faced this kind of a thing, or probably still were, but coping with it in a certain way. So that was an absolutely a challenge for me to kind of build on, in a senses. And that has been the defining factor in various ways in which I look at life even now. So as the director of women's studies in Jamia, it's called the Sarojini Naidu Center for Women's Studies, I really brought in the fact that it's not just an academic, if we a discipline, we really made it need to make a difference. So we can talk about all kinds of theories, from a feminist perspective, we can do all that. But if we are not making that change, if we are not imbibing that in our life, we're really not doing anything. And that is something that got me. So we worked in the community, the larger community in Jamia as well, and worked towards trying to get the police to lodge FIRs for from within the community when there were issues of domestic violence and others. And the realization really came in that the women would, one, that the legality was not a resolution of any kind of problems that were there. Second, that if women were pursuing or giving a kind of, and this is something we spoke to the police, and the lieutenant governor used to have these meetings with NGOs and a few of us from the women's study scenario, and would clearly ask for, what would you want? And it was interesting that, the police said that you get these cases and then they don't do anything about it. And, we had to tell them that, yes, they might just be an FIR that she lodges because she has a problem at home and there's an issue that is happening. But that FIR is something which is like a bargaining chip she'll have. She'll do nothing about it after that, not go to the court, will not have the wherewithal to do that. But that FIR is going to be like a bargaining chip with whoever, her oppressor or whoever, spouse, because the kind of, exposure that we saw, and when we spoke to women, they said shauhar ne kiya, and most deviant sexual practices like putting chilies in the vagina and piercing. It was just so sick. You couldn't imagine that this was happening, and they would accept it, saying that shauhar ne kiya hai, so everything is correct. He couldn't be doing wrong. And that is when the realization comes in that, this is something which is bothering me, and the fact that if we can make a change in that. And that to me was very empowering when we had workshops for girls, and Jamia has school level as well. So we had workshop for the schools, and adolescent girls would come in, and workshops under the larger thing of, self-defense, because otherwise the parents would probably not send. They'll say, "Ye feminists bigaad dengi ladkiyon ko." And when the girls would come, we would have certain legal provisions, we'd discuss issues, have brainstorming on it, and have legal dimensions also. At the end of a 5-day work, and we would have the police training them on self-defense, as a part of the thing. And at the end of the workshops, and the first time it happened, it was so overwhelming when we had the valedictory session and we were giving out certificates to the girls. The parents came and they said, this workshop has been a learning for us as well. The girls come back and tell us that, Abu, aapko pata nahi hai ki ye law hai, aise nahi karna chahiye, or tell the mother. So, and the parents were learning, and that's the first time I realized that it was a reverse kind of socialization happening. Normally we take the learning coming top down, and that is something to me was a major learning, because I realized we also needed to learn from what the children were going through and what they were understanding. And the kids would tell us, what is, something which is contemporary, and the fact that they were going back and telling their parents that it had seeped into their being, that they were recognizing, and hopefully were going to continue in that path of what I would say was empowerment. But it's not so simple, because empowerment could mean anything, and very often it's treated as only as economic empowerment, which might not be something which is actually true empowerment in a lot of senses of the term. So I don't know how much time I have, but Paulina, would you like to brief me on that?
Yes, ma'am. You may have 10 more minutes. It's okay. Yes.
So, so in that larger framework of how we, come across in life, in a lot of ways, they are defining movements, and they are in retrospect what look like something which could have been debilitating for us, in manifest ways, has really been latent ways, has really been the major learning, which defines the way we go forward. So, if one has to doubt anything, a learning that I feel in various ways, in terms of, looking at the broader scenario of how society looks at relationships. And here, for one, I would really wanted to define that, gender is not just men and women. So we really needed to look at the identification or the identity in terms of various other manifestations of, gender per se, in in a sense of the identification of looking at, which is very often not treated as something which is taught, or we need to be beyond that cisgender identity also in terms of, say, sexual orientation, you know, which we need to teach and bring in, because uh, that is something through the 1 billion rising, being part of the 1 billion rising against violence, that, you know, we came across was issues of masculinity and others as well, which a lot of work was done on it. And when there was a conference on by Men Engage International, in the second conference, the first one was in Rio, the second one was in Delhi in Habitat, that we had the transgender coming up and saying that, you know, this entire workshop of yours would be useless if we were not there. It would just be men and women. And it really made one think that we really need to look beyond the gender binary in lots of ways, which is something that, you know, we need to bring in, because very often it's just treated as, in fact, it's just treated as women. And that's a change one is trying to bring about in terms of looking at beyond that gender binary, looking at say sexual orientation as well as gender identity. Sexual orientation in terms of, who do I love? Do I love a man or do I love a woman? Or, you know, the identity, am I a man or am I a woman? And that's something that, you know, a recent film that I saw, which was kind of, you know, kind of deconstructed this whole notion of looking at this identity, when there's a character, one person actually makes a statement and saying, I want the outside of me to be like the inside of me. So, you know, that we don't recognize in various ways. So I think we really need to move, it's the diversity is emerging more and more in various ways, that we need to recognize that diversity, accept it, and in the times that we live, and honor that diversity, make it something which is more empowering for everybody, and not just, you know, an identity that we are carrying forth to look through, you know, through that lens, that gender lens, so to say. So there will be moments, you know, like the moon, that we go through phases of emptiness, but there are the moments that it's a full moon again, and that's what, you know, one has to strive for. So you know, the good and bad, it's a package deal in the way life leads us. And through the disciplines that I teach, I think one has to get in, and this is something that if I'm taking you know, sessions in refresher courses and faculty induction programs and others, one has to emphasize here that the role of the academia is just so significant, not just in terms of the discipline that they're teaching, but in terms of the change, the multiplier effect that we can have. So we really need to bring in all these equalizing and imbibe the elements of human, and not just, you know, gender, in terms of even human rights per se, and you know, rise above that being a drop in the ocean. So really, as Rumi again said, you know, that you're not a drop in the ocean, you're an ocean in a drop. So that's what one is striving for. And I can see a lot of initiatives from all kinds of quarters. I'm just a small segment there. But the commitment to make that difference, to make that change, and to recognize that as success rather than any kind of, you know, upliftment in terms of moving from a lecturer to an associate professor to a professor, and or being a director. It's not, these are responsibilities that we need to carry forth, and these are a combination of, you know, rights and duties that we need to imbibe in the generation next. We are a very young population in India, and that's something that, you know, we have to look towards. And of course, to me, another commitment is of sustainable development. So, which is not an easy, it's not an easy option, but we really need to work towards it. And the pandemic really has made us realize how things can be different if, you know, and the lockdown made us realize. So it's treated like a major, you know, crisis again, but it's been an opportunity for the other species to grow, for pollution to be less, for the fact that you could contemplate and actually function through technology to be used in different ways. So there have been opportunities, and there have been kind of, it's a package deal that one looks at. So I just, there's so much more that, one can kind of discuss through how we, look at life. But happiness really, to me, ultimate thing is having that happiness. And if we give the key of our happiness in somebody else's pocket, it doesn't really work in that way, because then our whole focus is on that. We need to look inward in a lot of ways, and the change happens. And it's very, that is very empowering to me. That is very empowering when you've made that difference or made that change yourself. So I'd like to stop here.
Yes, thank you, Dr. BulBul Dhar-James. It was really honored to have you on this platform. I'm sure a lot of our viewers and our audience will be very inspired from your journey. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Vanita and Paulina and Aambra Foundation for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.